Thanks for joining me on today's Tropical Weather Impact. It is Wednesday, July the 9th. I'm meteorologist Payton Malone. We are recording this over in New Orleans. Things in New Orleans this morning have been very quiet. We've just been in this summertime routine of scattered showers and storms in a large portion of the Gulf Coast from Texas all the way across the Gulf here, kind of staying in this summery pattern here, which is not a bad thing this time of year. Whenever you're just stuck in the usual, that means you're not tracking anything out in the tropics, and we still are not tracking anything in the tropics. The only thing of note is this upper level low that's been spinning out towards the Bahamas and Florida. That's lifting to the north. That will increase the chance for scattered storms across the Florida and down through the Bahamas here over the next few days. Actually lifting north, may skirt the Carolinas later this week with a little extra rain, but it doesn't look like that's really going to develop into anything. So Hurricane Center right now not tracking anything for development over the next 7 days. So it looks like we'll probably get through this week without any problems. Now, next week, there are some signs that maybe we do need to keep an eye on the northern Gulf. And this is just a vague kind of outlook showing a zone where we could see some disturbed weather. This outlook you're seeing here in yellow is not from the National Hurricane Center. It's from the Climate Prediction Center. And what that means is they forecast a little bit longer out than what the National Hurricane Center does. So you've probably seen this go viral, or you've seen it on social media the past 24 hours or so. So this is just a general zone where we think there's going to be more disturbed weather into next week, thanks to an upper level low that's going to get cut off from the main flow and back across to the west, very similar to what we saw this past weekend with what ended up becoming Chantal. So this general corridor is where there could be some disturbed weather next week. And anytime you get disturbed weather or persistent showers and storms over the warm water this time of year, you can get some low pressure forming. So it's just something to watch. But right now the concern level with this is about as low as it can get. It's just kind of a heads up. Next week we'll probably be checking in on this zone frequently to see how things are evolving. You can see it when you look at some of our models. This specific model I'm showing you right now is precipitable water, and all that tells you is how much water is in a column of the atmosphere. If you were to take all the moisture and squeeze it out of the atmosphere, this is how much rain would fall. And wherever you see these deeper colors, the purples, that's where you have a lot of tropical moisture, meaning if it were to rain, it would rain very heavily, and you could pick up a lot of rain in a short amount of time. So in a general sense, this is right now on your Wednesday. You can see you've got tropical moisture just kind of scattered across the deep south. Fast forward into the weekend, and next week you can see some of that tropical moisture gets cut off and begins to back to the west here. And so this is what we're going to be tracking next week as that tropical moisture pulls and collects and concentrates in the northern Gulf. We will keep an eye on it, and that's really all you're going to do with these types of things. This is fairly normal for this time of year. In June and July, you have to watch these little homegrown areas, as we call them, and so next Wednesday to Thursday, we may see moisture increasing across the northern Gulf. Keep in mind, this is one model run. They're going to change every single time, but a lot of guidance does suggest extra rain or extra moisture potentially somewhere in these zones through the middle of next week. So that's about all we're watching out there in the tropics right now as it stands. Elsewhere, we've continued to see heavy rain lead to flooding across the U.S. There were spots in Oklahoma and Chicago that picked up heavy rain yesterday. Also, over in New Mexico, in southern New Mexico, south central New Mexico here, picked up a lot of rain around Ruidoso. Now, this area had terrible fires last year. And what happened here is a lot of the vegetation was gone. It rained a lot yesterday, and we saw terrible flooding, even some deaths reported in these areas yesterday. So this is not associated with what happened in Texas back over the holiday weekend. This is a completely different setup here, and could happen again today. Now, not going to play out exactly the same, but there is a risk for flooding. So as we go through the afternoon here, notice your Wednesday afternoon, we start to see some showers and storms bubble up. And if it falls in the wrong place, if you get in these higher elevations, that rain rushes down the mountains here that do have those burn scars, and you get mud flows, you get mudslides, and you get terrible flooding. And so wherever these little pop-up storms happen, they can dump very isolated areas, but a lot of rain in one spot. Keep in mind, this is a very hard thing to forecast where exactly it happens. That's why oftentimes you hear these were a surprise. Meteorology is not good enough to depict or forecast these little tiny areas of heavy rain that can cause just catastrophic problems. And so that's certainly something they're going to be watching again in these surrounding communities over New Mexico as we go through today. So that's going to be a flood risk that's going to be monitored out there later on. Elsewhere, there is a fairly significant flood risk across parts of Virginia and northern North Carolina. Now, keep in mind, these are some of the same areas that saw the terrible flooding from Chantal just Sunday into Sunday night, especially near UNC out here near Greensboro and Raleigh. These spots are where you saw over a foot of rainfall. Now, there could be a couple of spots later on for Wednesday evening where you get some slow moving downpours. This ground is fairly saturated right now after some rain they got earlier this week from the tropical storm or tropical depression. So there is a flood risk. It includes areas in northern North Carolina. It includes Richmond, Virginia. Roanoke, Virginia also has a risk for flooding, and that flood risk does extend in a much larger scale here. That's just where we're depicting there's a greater chance of seeing flooding. Keep in mind, you can get significant flooding in green. I think a lot of times these outlooks are misunderstood. What they tell you is the chance that you see flooding in a specific area within like 25 miles of an area. So you can still get significant impacts in the green here. It's just probably going to be extremely isolated in nature. And so oftentimes when you look at these outlooks, you see you're in the green, you think, I don't have anything to worry about. Well, there could still be flooding, especially if you get these little pop-up storms in the wrong spot in an urban area where drainage is a problem. All of these things are factors in flooding here. So while there is a red zone here for parts of Virginia, everywhere else, D.C. all the way down into South Carolina has a risk for flooding, and even in the green here has a risk for flooding. It's just the chances of seeing it don't seem as great, but they are all risk. And so you've got to pay attention to these things, especially in the vulnerable areas. Now, when you look at your rainfall totals, there's a couple bullseyes today. Could have some heavy rain up around Iowa too, with some heavy rain falling that direction. You can see here across the deep south, you've got a lot of these lighter colors and every now and then a little splotch of yellow. That means pop-up showers and storms. But again, the bigger flood problems probably going to be somewhere in this area. High resolution models really locking in on a few spots there in southern Virginia, just outside of Roanoke, maybe picking up over 4 inches of rain. So that's going to be a flood risk for those areas. Elsewhere in the tropics, there's simply not a lot happening. We were talking about, we'll watch that feature next week. But if you do live along the Gulf Coast here, maybe the western Gulf Coast from South Texas, maybe towards Tampico, Mexico, and up into the northern Gulf, got this little plume of dust that's going to be moving in over the next 48 hours or so. This plume is starting to settle some. It's not nearly as thick as it was a couple days ago out near the islands here, but you can see there getting into Brownsville, drifting north, Corpus Christi, Houston, going to see some haze in the sky when you're not getting rain, and then eventually that's going to start to fly over towards the northern Gulf. So we've got a ridge of high pressure that's setting up over the Gulf here as we go through the end of the week. It's going to be about right there. Keep in mind the circulation around this high pressure is clockwise, so it's going to start to pull this dust around it, and that means you'll start to see some haze in the sky, maybe along the Louisiana coast here. But you can see there it loses a lot of its thickness and how thick the plume is once it reaches us Thursday into Friday. Then here comes another plume of dust for the Caribbean islands. So if you do have travel plans out towards maybe Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, or anywhere in between, look at this huge plume of dust coming in from the west here. So those hazy skies, you're getting a little bit of relief from them right now out in the islands, but here by tonight and into tomorrow, that next plume of dust is going to be moving in and creating that haze in the sky. This one's fairly large. You can see just how wide it is from north to south. It's extending over 1,000 miles. And remember, these are just plumes of dust that come out of the Sahara Desert. You can see there we've got more rounds of Saharan dust loading up, and these will eventually come off. They often do come with tropical waves mixed in between them, but just right now it's not very hospitable this time of year out in this area to get tropical development, really in part to how much dry air and how dusty it is in this portion of the Atlantic. Eventually, you start to see the atmosphere start to transition into a more hospitable place, and that's when you can get those plumes of Saharan dust becoming less frequent. So again, that next round of Saharan dust really starts to settle over the islands here by the end of this week. Here we are Saturday from Cuba, the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, down through the Lesser Antilles, you've got that plume of dust that settles in and probably settles in through at least the weekend here before it starts to make its way to the west. Eventually, we may see some of this dust closer to Cancun by early next week and then trying to get pulled to the north. At the same time next week, we may be seeing moisture increase across the northern Gulf. So a lot going on here, but nothing is an imminent threat and nothing looks like it's going to be an immediate concern for really any locations out in the tropics here. Just watching the dust, which isn't a bad thing. So there you have it. Next name on the list is Dexter. We will keep you updated, but for now, level of concern all across the tropics is on the very low side. I want to thank you so much for joining me here on today's Tropical Weather Impact. We will see you right back here tomorrow with the latest.